Rita Panahi sits in the familiar studio chair where she's delivered countless hard-hitting political commentaries, but today something is different. Her usual razor-sharp confidence seems muted, replaced by an unusual vulnerability that even the seasoned camera crew notices immediately. The host, expecting another typical political discussion, casually mentions Charlie Kirk's name during what should have been a routine segment about conservative media personalities. That's when everything changes. Rita's composure cracks like glass hitting concrete. Her hands, normally steady and expressive during debates, begin to tremble visibly as she grips the armrests of her chair. The woman who has faced down hostile interviews and political attacks without flinching suddenly looks fragile, human in a way her audience has never witnessed before. A single tear escapes her right eye, followed by another, as she struggles to find words that seem stuck somewhere deep in her chest. The studio falls into an eerie silence that stretches far beyond the typical pause between questions and answers. Camera operators freeze mid-movement, sound technicians stop adjusting their equipment, and even the normally bustling production crew behind the scenes goes completely still. The host, a veteran broadcaster who has conducted thousands of interviews, finds herself at a complete loss for words as she watches one of Australia's toughest political commentators begin to break down on live television. Rita takes a shaky breath and whispers something that stops everyone's heart. "You don't know what Charlie Kirk did for me," she says, her voice barely audible but somehow filling the entire studio with its raw emotion. "Nobody knows what he sacrificed when I was at my lowest point." The words hang in the air like a confession that was never meant to be shared publicly, revealing the existence of a hidden connection between two conservative voices that nobody saw coming. What Rita is about to reveal will shatter everything people thought they knew about both her and Charlie Kirk. The story she's about to tell involves a moment of personal crisis so deep that it nearly ended her career, a secret act of kindness that changed everything, and a friendship that has remained hidden from the public eye for reasons that will soon become clear. The tears streaming down her face are just the beginning of a revelation that will leave viewers questioning how well they really know the public figures they follow and admire. The host finally manages to speak, her voice gentle but filled with curiosity. "Rita, what happened? What did Charlie Kirk do?" But Rita can barely get the words out through her tears, and what she manages to say next will explain why this moment has been building for months, why she's kept this secret for so long, and why sharing it now feels both terrifying and necessary. If you've ever wondered what really happens behind the cameras when public figures face their darkest moments, if you've questioned whether the people we see on television are as strong as they appear, then what you're about to discover will change how you view not just Rita Panahi and Charlie Kirk, but every public figure who seems unbreakable. Stay with us as we uncover the hidden story that explains why Rita Panahi, one of the strongest voices in conservative media, broke down completely when talking about Charlie Kirk, and why the entire studio went silent in response to her revelation. Rita Panahi is unbreakable. For over a decade, she's been Sky News Australia's most fearless political commentator, the woman who faces death threats and responds by doubling down. She's stared down hostile crowds, dismantled corrupt politicians, and never once showed weakness on camera. Her colleagues describe her as having nerves of steel and a backbone made of titanium. This is the same Rita who laughed off personal attacks during heated debates, who maintained perfect composure when protesters stormed her speaking events, and who has never shed a single tear during the most emotionally charged political discussions. Her reputation is built on being emotionally bulletproof, someone who delivers hard truths without letting personal feelings interfere. But Charlie Kirk seemed like the most unlikely person to crack that armor. On the surface, they're just two conservative voices who occasionally cross paths at political conferences. Charlie, the young American founder of Turning Point USA, and Rita, the seasoned Australian commentator, appear to have nothing more than a casual professional relationship based on shared political views. What made Rita's breakdown so stunning was its complete unexpectedness. This was supposed to be a routine interview about conservative media. The host mentioned Charlie's name in passing, expecting a brief professional comment. Instead, that casual mention triggered something so profound that it shattered Rita's facade and revealed a vulnerability nobody knew existed. Crew members who have worked with Rita for years said they had never seen anything like it. The woman who survived personal attacks, professional controversies, and heated political battles was suddenly reduced to tears by the simple mention of Charlie Kirk's name. Nobody could understand why. What you're about to discover will reveal the hidden side of Rita Panahi that she's kept carefully guarded from public view, the personal crisis that nearly destroyed her career, and the extraordinary moment when Charlie Kirk stepped into her life exactly when she needed him most. The breakdown you witnessed was just the beginning of a story involving personal sacrifice, hidden kindness, and a friendship that developed completely in the shadows. Behind Rita Panahi's steel exterior lies a story that even her closest colleagues never suspected. 3 years ago, Rita faced the darkest period of her professional life, a crisis that threatened to end everything she had built over decades of hard work. It started with what seemed like routine criticism of her political commentary, but quickly escalated into something far more dangerous and personal. The attacks began appearing across social media platforms simultaneously, coordinated and vicious in a way that felt calculated rather than organic. Anonymous accounts started posting personal information about Rita's family, her home address, and detailed threats that went far beyond typical political disagreement. But the real nightmare began when these threats started targeting her teenage daughter, including photos of her school and daily routine. Rita had faced criticism before, but this was different. The harassment campaign was sophisticated, relentless, and clearly designed to destroy not just her career but her family's safety and peace of mind. Sleep became impossible as she spent nights monitoring online threats, coordinating with security experts, and trying to shield her daughter from the psychological warfare being waged against them. The breaking point came when threatening packages began arriving at her home. Rita's usual confidence cracked as she realized that her career in political commentary had put her family in genuine danger. For the first time in her professional life, she began questioning whether fighting for her political beliefs was worth the price her loved ones were paying. What made this crisis even more devastating was the isolation Rita felt during those dark months. The very strength and independence that had made her famous now worked against her. She had spent years building an image of invincibility, making it nearly impossible to reach out for help when she desperately needed it. Her pride and professional reputation prevented her from showing vulnerability even to those closest to her. Rita began experiencing panic attacks for the first time in her life, moments when the walls felt like they were closing in and the weight of protecting her family while maintaining her career became overwhelming. She would sit in her car after tapings, hands shaking, wondering if she had the strength to continue fighting battles that seemed to be putting everyone she loved at risk. The harassment campaign intensified just as Rita was scheduled to appear at a major conservative conference in the United States. She seriously considered canceling, something she had never done in her entire career. The thought of facing a public audience while her personal life was under siege felt impossible. This is where Charlie Kirk enters the story in a way that nobody could have predicted. What happened next changed everything for Rita, but the full story of Charlie's intervention has remained hidden until now. The secret act of kindness that Charlie performed during Rita's darkest hour not only saved her career but possibly her family's safety. And the way he did it reveals a side of Charlie Kirk that the public has never seen, showing how one person's compassion can completely transform another person's life when they need it most. It was 2 a.m. in Australia when Rita's phone rang with a call from an unknown American number. Exhausted from another sleepless night monitoring threats against her family, she almost didn't answer. The voice on the other end was Charlie Kirk, calling from his office in Phoenix after hearing through conservative media circles about the harassment campaign targeting Rita. What he said next would completely change the trajectory of her crisis. Charlie had been quietly investigating the coordinated attack on Rita's family for weeks, using resources and connections that Rita never knew existed. While she was fighting this battle alone, feeling isolated and overwhelmed, Charlie had been working behind the scenes with cybersecurity experts and legal professionals to trace the source of the harassment campaign. He had discovered something that Rita couldn't have uncovered on her own. The anonymous accounts attacking Rita weren't random trolls or political opponents, as everyone assumed. Charlie's investigation revealed they were part of a sophisticated operation run by a political consulting firm that specialized in destroying conservative voices who were becoming too influential. Rita wasn't just facing online harassment, she was the target of a professional character assassination campaign funded by people who saw her growing influence as a threat. But Charlie didn't just bring Rita this information, he brought her a solution. He had quietly assembled a team of the best cybersecurity experts in the conservative movement, lawyers who specialized in online harassment cases, and security professionals who could protect Rita's family. All of this was offered to her completely free of charge, funded entirely by Charlie's own resources and connections he had built through Turning Point USA. What made Charlie's intervention even more extraordinary was how he handled Rita's pride. He knew that someone as independent as Rita would struggle to accept help, especially from someone she barely knew. So Charlie presented the assistance not as charity, but as an investment in the conservative movement. He told Rita that strong voices like hers were essential to the cause, and protecting her was protecting the broader mission they both believed in. The cybersecurity team Charlie assembled worked around the clock to trace and neutralize the harassment campaign. Within 72 hours, they had identified the consulting firm behind the attacks and gathered enough evidence to threaten them with legal action. The threatening packages stopped arriving, the coordinated social media attacks ceased, and Rita's daughter could finally return to school without fear. But Charlie's help went beyond just solving the immediate crisis. He recognized that Rita was dealing with trauma from months of psychological warfare, and he quietly arranged for her to speak with a counselor who specialized in helping public figures cope with targeted harassment. He never pressured her to seek help, but simply made the resource available when she was ready to use it. The most remarkable part of Charlie's intervention was his insistence on keeping it completely secret. He asked Rita not to mention his involvement publicly, not because he was modest, but because he understood that her strength and independence were part of what made her effective as a commentator. If the public knew she had needed rescuing, it might undermine the very platform they were trying to protect. What Rita discovered through this crisis was that Charlie Kirk, despite his young age and sometimes controversial public persona, possessed a level of wisdom, resources, and genuine compassion that she had never encountered before. He had risked his own reputation and resources to help someone he barely knew, asking for nothing in return except that she continue being the strong conservative voice that the movement needed. This secret act of heroism created a bond between Rita and Charlie that transcended their professional relationship, but it also created a burden for Rita that she had carried in silence for 3 years. Until the moment she broke down on live television, she had never been able to publicly acknowledge the man who literally saved her career and her family's peace of mind. The interview was progressing normally until the host casually asked Rita about the rising influence of young conservative leaders in America. "What do you think about figures like Charlie Kirk and their impact on the movement?" she asked, expecting a standard political commentary response. Instead, Rita's entire demeanor shifted in a way that stunned everyone in the studio. Rita's hands began trembling as she gripped the armrests of her chair. Her usual confident posture crumbled as she leaned forward, struggling to find words that seemed caught in her throat. The camera captured the exact moment when her professional mask slipped away, revealing raw vulnerability that nobody had ever seen from her before. "Charlie Kirk," she whispered, her voice breaking on his name. The silence that followed was deafening. The host, sensing something profound was happening, leaned forward with concern rather than curiosity. Rita's breathing became shallow and rapid as 3 years of suppressed gratitude and emotional burden suddenly demanded to be released. "You don't understand what he did for me," she said through tears that were now flowing freely down her cheeks. "When I was at my lowest point, when I thought my career was over and my family was in danger, Charlie Kirk saved us," Rita continued, her voice gaining strength even as her tears increased. "He didn't just help me, he risked everything to protect people he barely knew, and he never asked for recognition or thanks. He just did it because it was right." The studio crew, accustomed to Rita's composed political debates, stood frozen as they witnessed this unprecedented display of vulnerability. Camera operators continued filming, but many found themselves wiping away their own tears as Rita's raw emotion filled the entire studio with an almost sacred atmosphere of authentic human connection. Rita described how Charlie's intervention had literally saved her family from ongoing harassment and possibly physical danger. She spoke about the sleepless nights, the fear for her daughter's safety, and the isolation she felt during those dark months. "I've spent 3 years carrying this secret," she said, her voice cracking with emotion. 3 years knowing that I owe everything to someone I couldn't publicly thank." The host, clearly moved by Rita's revelation, asked gently why she had kept this secret for so long. Rita's answer revealed the depth of her respect for Charlie's character. "Because he asked me to," she said simply. "He didn't want credit or recognition. He just wanted me to keep fighting for the things we both believe in. That's the kind of person Charlie Kirk really is." What made this moment even more powerful was Rita's admission that she had struggled with accepting help. "I built my career on being independent, on never needing anyone," she explained through her tears. "But Charlie showed me that even the strongest people sometimes need someone to stand with them. He didn't make me feel weak for needing help. He made me feel valued enough to deserve it." The breakdown continued as Rita revealed how Charlie's kindness had changed not just her circumstances but her entire perspective on leadership and community. She spoke about learning that true strength sometimes means being vulnerable enough to accept support from others, and how Charlie's example had taught her that helping others in secret is one of the most powerful forms of leadership. By the end of her revelation, the entire studio was in tears. The host struggled to maintain her professional composure, crew members were visibly moved, and even the usually stoic security guards were wiping their eyes. Rita had transformed from the untouchable political commentator into a deeply human figure whose vulnerability made her somehow even more powerful than before. What you're witnessing is the moment when 3 years of gratitude, respect, and emotional burden finally found their voice, and why Rita Panahi's breakdown over Charlie Kirk represents something much deeper than a simple thank you between colleagues. For 37 seconds, nobody in the studio spoke. The only sound was Rita's quiet sobbing as she tried to compose herself, wiping tears with tissues that seemed inadequate for the magnitude of emotion she had just released. The host sat in respectful silence, understanding that she had just witnessed something far more significant than a typical celebrity revelation. This wasn't just about gratitude, it was about the hidden cost of public strength. When Rita finally found her voice again, she shared something that revealed the deeper truth behind her breakdown. "For 3 years, I've carried guilt along with gratitude," she admitted, her voice still shaky but gaining clarity. "Guilt that I needed saving, guilt that I couldn't handle it alone, and guilt that I couldn't even thank the person who saved my family because he asked me not to." Rita explained how the secret had become a burden that grew heavier with each passing month. Every time she saw Charlie Kirk criticized in the media, every time his character was questioned or his motives were attacked, she wanted to defend him by sharing the truth about his character. But her promise to keep his intervention secret meant she had to watch in silence as people judged someone whose true nature they couldn't possibly understand. "The hardest part," Rita continued, "was realizing that my independence, the thing I was most proud of, had almost cost me everything. I was so determined to handle the crisis alone that I was failing to protect the people I loved most. Charlie didn't just save my career, he taught me that asking for help isn't weakness, it's wisdom." Rita's revelation went deeper than just Charlie's intervention. She described how the experience had fundamentally changed her understanding of leadership and community. "I used to think that being strong meant never needing anyone," she said. "But Charlie showed me that true strength is knowing when to accept help and how to give it without expecting recognition." The emotional weight of the moment was amplified by Rita's admission that she had been struggling with the decision to share this story for months. She had wanted to honor Charlie's request for privacy while also feeling an overwhelming need to acknowledge what he had done. The internal conflict had been eating away at her, creating a tension between her professional image and her personal truth. "I broke my promise to him by sharing this," Rita said, fresh tears beginning to flow. "But I couldn't keep carrying this alone anymore. The world needs to know that there are people like Charlie Kirk who do extraordinary things without seeking credit, who risk their own reputation to help others, and who understand that real leadership happens in private moments when nobody is watching." Rita's breakdown had revealed something profound about the hidden struggles of public figures, the weight of maintaining strength when you feel vulnerable inside, and the transformative power of unexpected kindness. Her tears weren't just about gratitude, They were about the release of years of emotional pressure from carrying a secret that had fundamentally changed who she was as a person. The studio audience, initially confused by Rita's emotional display, began to understand that they were witnessing something rare and authentic. This wasn't calculated for publicity or dramatic effect. This was a human being finally allowing herself to be vulnerable about a debt she could never fully repay and a friendship that had remained hidden from the world. As Rita composed herself, she looked directly into the camera with a mix of vulnerability and determination that her audience had never seen before. "If Charlie is watching this, I hope he can forgive me for breaking my promise," she said. "But I couldn't let the world keep judging you without knowing who you really are. Some secrets are too important to keep even when you've promised to keep them." What Rita revealed in her breakdown wasn't just about one act of kindness. It was about the hidden network of support that exists among people who share common values, the way real leaders operate when cameras aren't rolling, and the profound impact that one person's compassion can have on another person's entire life trajectory. Within hours of the interview airing, something extraordinary happened that nobody could have predicted. The clip of Rita's breakdown didn't just go viral, it sparked a movement. Thousands of viewers began sharing their own stories in the comments, revealing moments when strangers had stepped in during their darkest hours, acts of kindness that had never been publicly acknowledged, and the transformative power of unexpected support. Charlie Kirk's response came just 6 hours after the interview aired. Instead of being upset about Rita breaking her promise of secrecy, he posted a simple message on social media that revealed even more about his character. "Rita Panahi is one of the strongest people I know," he wrote. The fact that she thought she needed to apologize for sharing a story about friendship shows exactly why she deserved help in the first place. Some battles are too big to fight alone. Rita's phone began ringing immediately after Charlie's response went public. The first call came from her daughter, now in college, who had watched the interview and finally understood why their family's nightmare had ended so suddenly 3 years ago. "Mom," she said through tears of her own, "you don't have to carry everyone's burdens by yourself anymore." It was a conversation that had been years in the making. What followed in the days after the interview surprised everyone, including Rita herself. Instead of appearing weak or dependent, her vulnerability had made her more relatable and powerful than ever before. Viewers flooded her social media with messages of support, not for her political views, but for her humanity. People shared stories of their own hidden struggles and the unexpected angels who had appeared in their lives during moments of crisis. The interview also revealed something profound about the nature of true leadership in the digital age. Rita's breakdown demonstrated that authenticity and vulnerability could be more powerful than any political argument or debate victory. Her willingness to share her moment of need had given permission for others to acknowledge their own struggles and celebrate the hidden heroes in their own lives. Perhaps most importantly, Rita's story changed the conversation about what strength really means. Her breakdown became a catalyst for discussions about the hidden costs of public life, the importance of community support, and the courage required to accept help when it's offered. She had accidentally started a movement that celebrated quiet acts of heroism and the people who help others without seeking recognition. In the weeks following the interview, Rita and Charlie began collaborating on a project neither had planned. They started working together to create a support network for public figures facing harassment and threats, using Charlie's resources and Rita's experience to help others navigate similar crises. The secret intervention that had saved Rita's career had evolved into a mission to protect other voices in the movement. Rita's transformation was visible to everyone who knew her. The weight she had carried for 3 years was gone, replaced by a peace and authenticity that made her even more effective as a commentator. She began speaking more openly about the challenges of public life, the importance of community, and the power of unexpected friendships. Her vulnerability had become her greatest strength. The studio that went silent during Rita's breakdown had witnessed something that transcended typical television entertainment. They had seen the moment when a public figure chose truth over image, vulnerability over strength, and authenticity over perfection. It was a reminder that behind every strong public voice is a human being who sometimes needs support, encouragement, and the kindness of others. If Rita's story has touched something in your own heart, If you recognize the weight of carrying burdens alone or the transformative power of unexpected kindness, share your own experience in the comments below. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is acknowledge the hidden heroes in our own lives and the moments when accepting help changed everything. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that reveal the humanity behind the headlines and the extraordinary kindness that exists in ordinary moments.